views expressed on this program are those of the hosts, guests, and callers, and are not necessarily those of this station, its management, or other advertisers. You're listening to Transformation Talk Radio.
Moms, are you ready to become enlightened, empowered, and stress-free? Well, get ready because you are about to tune into vibrant, powerful moms helping everyday women create an extraordinary life with Debbie Pokornik. Each week, Debbie discusses topics to help you become self-aware, inspired, and on track to create the life you crave. It's time to stop settling and start thriving. And it all begins now on Transformation Talk Radio.
Welcome to the Vibrant Powerful Mom Show. I'm your host, Debbie Pokornik, and my mission is to help you break free of those things that are holding you back from being your best self so that you can be fully empowered to love the life you've come here to live, at work, at home, and at play. A few months ago, I shared my health journey with you and talked about a couple of incredible books that totally turned my understanding of health on its head. These books are called The Medical Medium and Liver Rescue, respectively, and both are by Anthony Williams. Since then, I've also read his thyroid healing book, which is no less phenomenal, and I have his new celery book on order. Today, I would like to talk more about some of the things I've learned from these books, how I have applied them to my own life, how I've had to tweak some of them to really work for me, and how things are changing for me as a result. To make this conversation a little easier, I often refer to Anthony as MM, which stands for Medical Medium. So know that when I use those initials, it's Anthony and his sidekick, which is a spirit of compassion, that I'm referring to. In case you are totally unfamiliar with MM, I'll give you a short synopsis of his main premise. And then if that's not enough, or if it piques your interest, please pick up any of his books to find out more. You could also listen to my earlier episode, which aired on January 21st, called Speaking of Health, May I Be Blunt, if you want more on my health journey. But for his stuff, please go to his books. They're fantastic. So almost every single health concern that we hear about, like everything from MS to Lyme's disease, thyroid disorders, chronic fatigue, leaky gut, skin rashes, even cancer, is caused by viruses or bacteria. These bugs have the ability to hide out in our bodies, so they don't show up on blood tests, x-rays, or any other mode of testing that we currently have. While we go about our normal life, these bugs are hiding out in us, often pigging out on the smorgasbord of food we provide them in our body without even knowing it. They thrive on many of the common foods that we eat, things that we think are good for us, and then some of them we just really love, so we eat them and enjoy them. They also eat heavy metals, which apparently we all have an excess of in our bodies. In fact, we can even inherit heavy metals from our grandparents, our parents, our grandparents, our great-grandparents, and so on back down the line. So that's not the same as it being part of your genetics, but it can be passed on through the bloodline. And not just from your mom, from your dad too, from your grandpa, from your great-grandpa, and so on. So it's very interesting, but we all have lots of these heavy metals in us as a result of that, plus the fact that it's just everywhere around us and in our water pipes and so on and so forth. They also like to eat radiation. So from things like x-rays, cell phones, and airplanes. Did you know, according to you can even pick up radiation off of a person who has just recently had an x-ray? So, when you're sitting at that meeting at work and the guy comes to sit beside you and says, yeah, I just came from the dentist who did 5 x-rays, you're probably picking up radiation and feeding your bugs. Anyway, they also like to eat excess hormones like adrenaline and cortisol, so those stress hormones that we tend to have an abundance of in our systems. And even pharmaceuticals, like medications that we take, whether they be over the counter or actual prescribed medications, it doesn't really matter. The bugs love them, along with pesticides, insecticides, all those kinds of toxins that we get in our body. Like, no wonder they are so prolific. They are being fed constantly. Now, some of these bugs are super smart, while others survive by sheer numbers, and all of them are very, very patient. So they wait until something happens to compromise your immune system, whether that be stress, lack of sleep, travel, pregnancy, menses, even skipping a meal can cause problems. And then they attack at the opportune moment. So they're watching and waiting. But in the meantime, they're feeding and multiplying. Now, this means that even though you're picking up new bugs around you all the time, that part is true, you probably already have enough in you to cause a problem at any given time. So I'm not telling you this to scare you, and neither is MM. He's very, very clear. This is about awareness. This is about helping you know what's going on so that you can understand it and you can take action if you choose to take action, because knowledge truly is power. So when you think about it, this is why you can feel really healthy one day. And the next day you wake up with maybe some kind of a symptom. Maybe you've got a new ache in your shoulder, or maybe you suddenly are feeling kind of fatigued, like maybe you're coming down with something. But months later, you're still dealing with this and you're trying to figure out what the heck, like what started that? Yes, I had a stressful experience, but come on, it shouldn't be this bad. And the next thing you know, you wind up with a diagnosis of, autoimmune disease, or maybe you discover you have shingles, or you have just severe back pain for like the longest time, or maybe it's Parkinson's, MS, lupus, whatever. Now, of course, with a lot of those ones, by the time you get the diagnosis, you've been experiencing symptoms for so long that it really doesn't seem like it came out of nowhere. But if you really had to sit down and say, gee, what caused this to happen? Most often, we're kind of at a loss. Like, we don't recognize it's because we had a filling, 2 months before that. And now suddenly, the mercury has fed this bug, and the bug has recognized we're stressed and been able to move to a new location and start causing trouble. Now, obviously, there is so much more to understand than this. I mean, he's written really big, very information-packed books on them. But my purpose today is not to cover what MM already so clearly explains in his books, but to share some of my experience with it. Remember, though, living your life fully aware allows you to make informed decisions for you and your children. So I'm not sharing any of this, and neither is MM, to scare you, but to inform, which is really the fuel behind everything that I do on this show. So to draw you a picture of my experience so far, I started adapting the way that I ate after reading MM's first book called Medical Medium back in June of 2018. That actually didn't go so great for me for the first couple of months, but I think I have figured out why that is. Number one, I'm a very sensitive person. I know that. I refer to myself often as a canary in the coal mine. And so I have to actually take things very slowly, but I tend to get excited when I read information that really resonates with me, and I jump in with both feet because I'm tired of this and I'm ready to make changes. So that's probably the first reason I reacted the way I did. The second, which I only learned later when I got his second book, was that my liver was super sluggish. So I really needed to spend some time giving my liver love and support and cleaning things out of it, and that this is an ongoing process. And when I jumped right in like that, my liver is going, I can't do it. Can't move that fast. Like, we're already at maximum capacity. And then number three, I know just from reading his books that I've got a lot of the viruses and the bugs that he talks about, like the bacteria. I have them in me. And so he explains how you can get a die-off of all these things when you eat too much or a lot of the things that help you to kill them off. And that die-off can cause you discomfort. So when you add all those things together, my digestive tract got pretty upset when I started doing this. But once I got things calmed down, I have to say that it's pretty amazing to me. I had a lot of stress because I was moving from Canada to Atlanta, Georgia. And I didn't know for sure that I was doing this until October 3rd. And we moved on October 23rd. That's when we crossed the border. So that's a really short period of time, very stressful, lots going on, not a lot of sleep, all that stuff. And when all was said and done, I had about 3 days after we crossed the border where I felt kind of like I had a cold. I had a stuffy head and I felt kind of achy and really tired. But that was it. That's amazing for me. Absolutely amazing. So in November of last year, I started to read the Liver Rescue book, and that's when I got serious about paring down the fat intake, meat especially. I pared it down before that, but not nearly as much as I did after reading that book. And I also did his 9-day liver cleanse right away. As of the recording date of this show, I have been eating with this awareness for about 10 months and been super serious about it for 6 months. So I've had the Liver Rescue book for 6 months. If that makes sense. Hopefully you're following me on this. I've done the 9-day liver cleanse twice. And I'm just about to start the 90-day plan for healing the thyroid. One of the things that I really love about MM's stuff is that his message is just so consistent. Nothing contradicts what I've already learned from his other books. So it's not like I have to start over now and do this 90-day thyroid thing. It's just that everything I'm reading takes me to a deeper level of understanding. And with each level of understanding, I get a better glimpse of what I need to do for me in order to get the absolute most out of what I'm learning. The 9-day liver cleanses were very doable as cleanses go. So if you're like me and have done a lot of cleanses, then you know they can really put you in a tizzy. And I have to say these ones did not. They were really quite friendly, and you are eating meals most of the days. So ever since doing the first one, I have to say I didn't have as big a clean out response as I thought I would on the cleanse. But ever since then, I can feel my system cleaning every day, and I can tell by what's going in the toilet that there's a lot of stuff being cleaned out. So I feel lighter, I feel less bogged down, I can feel things happening. So since I started eating this way, I've lost about 30 pounds, which really was more than was healthy for me to lose. And then I put back on about 10. And I've totally stabilized there for the last few months. So my guess is that each person will lose or gain exactly what they need to be at optimal health. And so in order for me to get rid of some of the stuff that really wasn't serving me, I had to lose more weight than was healthy. And then I kind of came back up. And now I feel like I've kind of plateaued where I'm at right now. But who knows, when I next talk to you in a few months about this, it's possible things will have changed again. But because my liver was in such a bad state and my thyroid was super compromised, I have taken all the foods that he says feeds the bugs out of my diet. I'm very strict about stuff like that. And I've continued to keep my fat intake super low. So, for example, if I'm eating meat, I'll only eat it every second day, and I'll go even longer. If my husband's not home for a week or something, I'll go like 3, 4, 5 days without having any kind of meat at all. I've gone off alcohol completely since November. He doesn't say you have to do that. I just read about what it does, understood that my liver really needs love and support right now, and decided that, you know what, I can do that easily. I did that when I was pregnant with both of my kids while I was breastfeeding. It's really not that big a deal. So that was my choice, and I did that. I'm also taking a lot of the supplements that he suggests, but I've had to be very careful with them. As I already said, I go on and off because otherwise it just gets too much for my system. So, I still do get headaches once in a while. They seem to clear up really quickly. So they feel more like a warning system than something that's going to like put me in bed and make me really feel awful for a whole day. But I have to say that kind of started before I even read his books because I was already doing a lot of stuff to try to clean up my system. I do find that I'm sleeping better since I've been following his stuff. My hormones seem to be straightening out, which is good. I get that, but it's also a bit of a bummer because I thought I was in full blown menopause and it turns out not. However, I will say that when I do suddenly get a period, it's not painful. I don't have the cramping. I don't have that bloated feeling. In fact, that's got to be the biggest change is I rarely am bloated anymore. Whereas I used to be bloated pretty much daily, and it could happen so quickly after eating a meal. So this is a huge positive change for me. On the flip side, I still have foggy brain sometimes. I had about a week where it was really bad. My energy is still questionable. I'm experiencing some digestive upset, as I've already mentioned, and I still have some aches and pains that are kind of unexplainable. Like I have a very sore left hip, and that really hasn't disappeared yet. But I'm thinking on the hierarchy of important things, probably my organs are just a much higher priority than my left hip is. So we'll see. In a few months, I'll tell you what's happening there. So while I've seen definite improvement, it will probably take me another year to get to a point of optimal health. And I'm giving myself a year or two to really get there. Plus, it's really important to remember that I am not living in a bubble at all. There's new toxins constantly being ingested. I don't want that, but my neighbor just the other day sprayed for mosquitoes and I was outside. I had no idea what they were doing. And so I probably breathed some of that in. I go into someone's house and they've got those fragrances plugged into their walls and I breathe it in and there's nothing I can do in that moment, but it makes it a little bit hard on me. And I mean, I've been flying more than I usually fly. There's tons of pollen around me right now. It's very strong, very yellow here in Atlanta, where the big trees are dropping their pollen. And in the past, pollen has caused me a huge amount of trouble, but it's really not. I think you can hear I'm not all plugged up. Yes, I've got some stuff going on, a little bit of itchy eyes and a little bit of nasal stuff, but nothing like it normally would be. So that is where I'm at. And I share all of that with you so that you can see this is a work in progress. I am still figuring out what all is getting better and what is not. And I just want to be really open with you about that. So now let's talk about some of the things that says you really want to include these things in your diet. The first thing I learned is that celery juice, 16 ounces with nothing else added, ingested every morning on an empty stomach, will help to rebuild your hydrochloric acid, your digestive tract, clean and balance your liver, kill viruses and bacteria, and more and more and more. So much more that he's written a whole other new book on this topic, and it hasn't released at the time of this recording, but it's really close, and you can pre-order it now. So I have ordered it because every time I get one of his books, I keep thinking, there's nothing new he can really teach me about this. And yeah, there's so much more. Maybe that's because he has the angel of compassion whispering in his ear. I'm sure that's what it is, but it's amazing to me, all the new information I'm getting. Going back to the celery though, I mean, plain old inexpensive celery. You put it through a juicer or a really strong blender like a Vitamix or Blendex or whatever, and then you could strain it through cheesecloth if you go that route. That can have a really huge positive influence on your life. And I have to admit, I've never really been crazy about celery. I don't dislike it, so I'm not offended when it's in a meal. And there are some things I eat that I would really miss it if the celery wasn't there, like say a stir fry or a sandwich that needs something crunchy in it. But I also don't typically choose it off the veggie tray, unless there's a dip, because, celery is great to have with dips, but I can rarely eat the dip, so I can't tell you the last time I've had a dip with my veggies. Because I don't mind it, and I just happen to have a juicer at home, I started following this protocol right away. And I was surprised to find that it didn't taste bad. I have definitely figured out since then, though, that not all celery tastes the same. Some is actually almost creamy and rich, and I just love it, like where I feel like I could drink another cup of it, which is weird because 16 ounces is typically enough. But others are like really bitter and kind of weak tasting, and those ones I kind of have to not force myself to drink it all, but I don't enjoy it. I just turn off my taste buds and I drink it. Of course, I have to say that now that so many people are learning about celery juice because of the efforts that has put in and the number of people that are promoting his stuff and that, it's actually really hard to find celery right now here in Atlanta, but I understand also in Winnipeg where I just moved from. And yeah, I've heard in California as well. So I think all over the place. However, as the farmers catch up and start making or growing more and more celery, I don't think it'll be a problem. So during this time, I also started MM's protocol for eliminating heavy metals. So this is another one of the things that he suggests we add into our diet. And basically, this is where you add in spirulina. He says from Hawaii is good, but since he wrote that, he's found that Vimergy has a really good spirulina as well. That is, I think, from right here in this part of the U.S. So yeah, you can get and the spirulina, barley grass, dulse, which is a seaweed, a special kind of seaweed, cilantro, and wild blueberries, which he says get the wild blueberries from Maine or Canada. So I choose the Canadian whenever I can because, I'm a Canadian gal at heart. And then you can make them all into a smoothie with bananas or whatever you want to make them taste good for you. But you can also just have them within a 24-hour period of each other. So you can have them all, like within a one-day period, make sure you ingest all of them, but you don't necessarily have to have them in a smoothie. So when I started doing this, it put my system into a funk. At least that's what I blamed for part of the funk. And I really had to back up a bit. So I took out the spirulina, the barley grass, and the dulse. And then I just continued with the cilantro and the wild blueberries. And then I started adding the others back in later. But despite this, my system at that time still seemed unhappy. So I returned to something that I'd actually done for years, which was to drink the juice of half a lemon in warm water when I first got up. And then I'd wait about half an hour and then do the celery juice. Now, I was thrilled to discover that actually instructs you to do this during his 9-day liver rescue cleanse. So I've made it a permanent part of my daily ritual. And I was also really surprised and happy to find out that he's the one who introduced that idea too, just many years before, and didn't always get the credit for it. So now I also enjoy a second mug right after the first one. So I have a mug with the lemon and the water that's just warm so I can down it and it kind of showers my intestinal tract. And then I follow that up with a mug that has some raw honey, some ginger, and the other half of the lemon. And that has made a huge difference because I think that's why I'm not reacting to the pollen as much. And then the ginger is really good for your digestive tract. So then I wait about half an hour and then I have my celery juice. And I wait another half hour and then I have my fruit smoothie. Sometimes with the heavy metal detox stuff in it, always with the wild blueberries in it. But sometimes I don't. I mix it up and I see how that goes. So I'm almost at the end of my time. What I'm going to do is I am going to split up this show into 2 different shows and put them back to back so that you can listen to them. But let me just tell you that I love talking about this topic, and I love helping other people to live a vibrant and powerful life. So I want to let you know that I am making myself available to anyone who wants to talk to me more about stuff. So maybe you want to brainstorm how you can apply it to your life or how you could use it with one of your kids. I am not an expert in it. I have read his books. I do understand a lot of this stuff. And I love helping people try to figure out how to apply it in their life. If he was available for one-to-one sessions, I'd say, do that. And I would do it as well. But he's just so inundated. There's just so many people that want his information. We can't all use him. So if you want to work with me on that, then go to my website at vibrantpowerfulmoms.com. You'll see I have an option there for a complimentary call. So set that up and we'll just chat about it. I'll give you my email address at that time, or you can get it off my website, I think. And we can talk together and just sort of see how we can work on it. And this is all for no charge at all, just to work together and see what a difference it can make for you. So I'm going to stop there and I will come back exactly to where we have left off on the next show. With much respect for you and the journey you are on, this is Debbie Pokornik wishing you a vibrant and powerful day.
You've been listening to Vibrant, Powerful Moms with host Debbie Pokornik. If you've enjoyed this show, please give us a shout out and leave us a positive review. To find out more about Debbie and her sisterhood of Vibrant, Powerful Moms, visit empoweringenergy.com. That's empowering with letters NRG.com.